You are standing on your lawn right now, holding a bag of fertilizer that cost you $40, wondering why the grass still looks tired by August. Stop. Put the bag down. There is a $2 powder sitting on the shelf of every farm supply store in America that will do more for your yard than every synthetic fertilizer combined. The Amish have used it for over 150 years, and the lawn care industry would rather you never find out it exists. The first time I saw it, I was standing on a farm just outside Millersburg, Ohio, watching an old Amish man scoop white powder from a burlap sack with a coffee can. His pasture was greenner than any suburban lawn I had ever seen. No irrigation, no chemical trucks, no $40 bags. I want to tell you about a document from 1889, a soil bulletin from Pennsylvania State College, that quietly confirmed what these families already knew. And I want to be clear from the start, this is not for people building a new home. This is for the yard you already own, the soil you already have, and the money you are about to stop spending. So let me back up and tell you how I got here. For 32 years, I did it the conventional way: spring feeding, summer feeding, fall feeding, weed and feed, starter fertilizer, winterizer. I spent, by my own count, close to $400 a year keeping a lawn that never quite looked right. It was green in April, yellow by July, and full of crabgrass by September. Every year I blamed the weather. Every year I bought more product. Then one summer, my brother-in-law asked me to help him move some furniture for a family he knew in Lancaster County. I ended up staying for supper. And after supper, the grandfather of the house walked me out to the edge of the yard and pointed at the grass. He said, "Feel that." I bent down and ran my hand across it. It was thick, cool, springy, like walking on carpet that had been laid over foam. I asked him what he fed it. He laughed. He said, "We don't feed the grass, we feed the ground." That sentence rearranged everything I thought I knew. Because here is what the lawn care industry has spent 70 years convincing you of. They have convinced you that grass is the customer, that you buy nitrogen and potassium and phosphorus to feed the blades, that the greener the bag, the healthier the yard. But grass does not eat fertilizer. Grass eats what the soil hands it, and if your soil is dead, no amount of synthetic nitrogen will save it. You are just pouring salt on a corpse and hoping it stands up. The powder that old man was using is called soft rock phosphate. Some folks call it colloidal phosphate. In the Amish communities of Holmes County and Lancaster County, they have been using it since the late 1800s, when it first got dug up out of the mines in Central Florida. A 2-pound scoop costs about $2 at any feed and seed store. A 50-pound bag runs around $25. That 50-pound bag will treat a quarter-acre lawn for 3 to 5 years. Let me repeat that, 3 to 5 years, not 3 to 5 months. Now here is where the story gets interesting. In 1889, Pennsylvania State College published what they called Bulletin Number 7, a report on soil deficiency in the southeastern part of the state. The researcher, a man named William Frear, documented that farms using rock phosphate powder alongside composted manure were producing yields 42% higher than farms using the new chemical fertilizers being sold out of Philadelphia. 42%. He wrote that the phosphate was releasing slowly, feeding the microorganisms in the soil, which in turn fed the plants. That bulletin got buried. Not destroyed, just buried. Because by 1910, the synthetic fertilizer industry was already lobbying land-grant universities to shift their recommendations. Soft rock phosphate did not require a patent. It did not require a factory. It did not require you to come back next season and buy more. It was, in the language of a business plan, a terrible product to sell. So they stopped teaching it. But the Amish never stopped using it, because the Amish do not read agricultural bulletins from 1910. They learned from the man who taught their father, who learned from his father, who learned from his father. The chain never broke. Here is what the powder actually does. Regular fertilizer dumps nitrogen into the soil in a form so hot and fast that grass roots stay shallow. They do not need to reach down. Everything is spoon-fed at the surface. So, the moment July hits and the top 2 inches of dirt dry out, your grass has nothing to fall back on. It browns. You panic. You buy more fertilizer. Soft rock phosphate does the opposite. It sits in the soil and releases phosphorus and calcium slowly over years. Roots have to grow down to find it. And as they grow down, they hit deeper moisture, tap into minerals, and build a root system that can survive a drought without a drop of extra water. Cornell did a study on this in 2003, tracking pasture grasses treated with soft rock phosphate versus triple superphosphate. The soft rock plots showed root systems averaging 11 inches deeper by the end of the second year. 11 inches deeper. That is the difference between a lawn that dies in August and a lawn that stays green through a heat wave. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch or people with acres of pasture, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need to till your yard. You do not need to strip the sod. You do not need a permit or a contractor or a soil test that costs $100. Here is exactly what you do. In early spring, when the ground is still soft from the last frost, take a hand spreader and broadcast the powder at a rate of about 10 pounds per 1,000 square feet. That is roughly 1 coffee can per 200 square feet if you want to eyeball it the way the old-timers do. Water it in with a normal rain or a light sprinkler run. That is it. That is the entire application. The powder will not burn your grass. It will not run off into a storm drain and cause you problems. It will not stink up the yard for a week. It sinks into the soil and it starts feeding the microbes within about 10 days. You can do this on a Saturday morning before your coffee gets cold. And listen, everything I just walked you through, the phosphate, the timing, the ratios, that is one page out of what I've come to call the buried archive. The full 3-volume Complete Field Vault has the rest of it. The heating tricks, the root cellar formulas, the pest powders, the off-grid water systems the Amish never wrote down for outsiders. There is a limited time offer on it right now, linked in the description, and you can scan the QR code on screen if you want the rest of what was taken from your grandfather's generation. Now back to the lawn. Because there is something else going on here that nobody talks about. The reason your yard has crabgrass, dandelions, and clover taking over is not because those weeds are aggressive, it is because your soil is calcium deficient and phosphorus starved. Weeds are the emergency room of the plant world. They show up when the soil is in crisis. Dandelions specifically thrive in soil that is low in calcium and high in compaction. Crabgrass loves soil that is low in phosphorus. Clover shows up when nitrogen is scarce. Every one of those weeds is your soil telling you what is missing. Soft rock phosphate delivers both calcium and phosphorus in a slow-release form, so within one full growing season, the conditions that let those weeds dominate start to disappear. The dandelions do not vanish overnight, but by year 2, you will notice the count is cut in half. By year 3, most homeowners tell me they have stopped pulling weeds altogether. Compare that to what you are doing now. Every spring, you spray a broadleaf herbicide that kills the top of the weed but does nothing to fix the soil. So the weed comes back the next year, and the next, and the next. You are treating the symptom forever, because the industry that sold you the herbicide is the same industry that sold you the fertilizer that created the deficiency that grew the weed in the first place. That is not an accident. That is a business model. There is a man named Dr. William Albrecht who ran the soils department at the University of Missouri from 1938 to 1959. He wrote extensively about calcium as the master mineral of soil health. He argued, with decades of data behind him, that most of the agricultural problems in North America came down to a calcium deficiency that synthetic fertilizers made worse, not better. His work was widely respected in his lifetime. Then he retired, and his research quietly stopped being cited. The land-grant universities moved on to more profitable partnerships. The Amish, again, kept doing what Albrecht said worked. Because they did not need a citation, they just needed a yard that grew. Now here is where it gets really good. Because I promised you a finale, and I am not going to hold it back. Buried inside a USDA farm survey conducted in 1923, in a section covering Wayne and Holmes counties in Ohio, there is a paragraph most people have never read. The surveyor, a man named Harold Bentley, was documenting the fertility practices of the Old Order Amish communities in the area. He noted that the most successful farmers were mixing their soft rock phosphate with one specific additional ingredient before spreading it: wood ash, specifically hardwood ash from their winter stoves. The reason is simple, and once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Wood ash is loaded with potassium and trace minerals. When you mix it with soft rock phosphate at roughly a 1:4 ratio, 1 part ash to 4 parts phosphate, you create what Bentley called in his report a complete mineral profile. Nitrogen from the natural decomposition of your grass clippings, phosphorus and calcium from the soft rock, potassium and micronutrients from the wood ash. That is your entire fertilizer program. For pennies, using material that is either $2 a scoop or completely free out of your fireplace. The Amish families that Bentley surveyed had been doing this for at least 3 generations before he showed up with his notebook. They saved their winter ash in a covered barrel. In early spring, they mixed it with the phosphate powder and spread it together. Their pastures fed dairy cows, their yards fed children playing barefoot, their soil got richer every year, not poorer. You have been throwing your wood ash in the trash, or worse, you have been buying bagged potash at the garden center for $18 a bag. You already own the missing ingredient. You just did not know it was the missing ingredient, because nobody was ever going to tell you. You can do the exact mix this weekend. Take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it 3/4 full with soft rock phosphate, add about a gallon of hardwood ash from a clean wood stove or fire pit, stir it with a stick, broadcast it over your lawn at 10 to 12 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Water lightly, walk away. That is the whole secret. That is the finale. That is what a $2 powder mixed with something you are about to throw out will do for a lawn that you have been failing to feed properly for the last 20 years. Something was taken from you. A simple, cheap, permanent way to have a healthy yard was replaced with a subscription plan disguised as a fertilizer aisle, and now you have it back. If you are the kind of man who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside so somebody else could keep collecting your money, you already know what to do next. Tell me in the comments, how many years have you been buying bagged fertilizer, and how much do you figure you have spent? I want to see the number. Write it down below. I read every one. And if you want to keep walking with the rest of us who are recovering what was buried, subscribe. Next week, I am going to show you the Amish method for keeping a basement dry without a sump pump, using nothing but a material that costs less than a bag of concrete and has been sitting under barn floors in Lancaster County for over 100 years. I will see you there. Before you close this video and head out to the shed to check what you already have on hand, I want to sit with you a little longer, because there are things about this powder and about the lawn it feeds that deserve more than a quick mention. There is history here. There are names. There are numbers that will surprise you. And there are consequences to knowing this that go beyond a green yard in July. Let me take you back to the year 1893, to a small phosphate mining operation just outside Mount Pleasant, Tennessee. The men working that pit were pulling up a soft, chalky blue-gray rock that crumbled between their fingers. They did not know it yet, but they were standing on top of one of the richest deposits of soft rock phosphate in North America. The Mount Pleasant field, along with the deposits in Bartow County, Florida, and later the ones discovered in Hardy and Polk counties, would go on to feed American agriculture for the next 130 years. But in those early days, the men pulling that rock out of the ground were selling it directly to farmers, not to corporations, not to chemical blenders, to farmers. A wagon would pull up, load a ton of the soft powdered rock for something like $3.50, and haul it back to a farm in Kentucky or Alabama or Georgia, where it would be spread by hand across pasture and cropland. Those farmers were not fools. They had watched their grandfathers work the same soil, and they knew what happened to land that was pushed too hard without being given back what it lost. Phosphate was the giving back. It was the deposit into the account. And here is the piece that matters. One application of soft rock phosphate, spread at the rates they were using in 1893, was still feeding those pastures in 1923. 30 years. There are university extension records from Auburn, from the University of Tennessee, from Mississippi State. that document pastures that received a single heavy application of soft rock phosphate in the 1920s and were still producing measurably better forage into the 1950s, 30 years of feeding from one application. That is not a fertilizer, that is an inheritance. Now compare that to what you have been doing. You go to the store in April, you buy a bag of granular fertilizer for $35, you spread it. 6 weeks later, the color starts to fade. You go back, you buy another bag, another $35, you spread it. 6 weeks later, the color fades again. You do this 4 times a year, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, if you are the type who keeps chasing a magazine cover lawn. That is anywhere from $140 to $210 a year, every year, forever. Over 20 years, that is between $2,800 and $4,200. And at the end of those 20 years, your soil is not one bit better than it was when you started. In fact, it is almost certainly worse, because the salt indexes in those synthetic fertilizers have been slowly cooking your microbial life, driving off your earthworms, and locking your existing minerals into forms your grass roots cannot reach. Meanwhile, the farmer in 1923 spread his rock once and forgot about it for a generation. I want you to think about how that switch happened. How did we go from a 30-year application to a 6-week application? It did not happen by accident. It happened because of a man named Fritz Haber and a process he perfected in Germany in 1909. The Haber-Bosch process, as it came to be called after Carl Bosch, scaled it up industrially by 1913, allowed factories to pull nitrogen out of the air and turn it into ammonia. That ammonia could be turned into ammonium nitrate, and ammonium nitrate could be turned into 2 things: explosives and fertilizer. During the First World War, and even more so during the Second World War, the United States and Germany and Britain built enormous ammonium nitrate factories to feed the war effort. When the war ended in 1945, those factories did not close. They pivoted. The same plants that had been making bomb material were suddenly making lawn and crop fertilizer, and there was an enormous supply chain, an enormous marketing push, an enormous political interest in keeping those factories running. The result was that between roughly 1947 and 1960, the American fertilizer market completely transformed. Soft rock phosphate, green sand, bone meal, wood ash, and the slow mineral amendments that had built American agriculture for 3 centuries were pushed off the shelves. In their place came the little bags with the 3 numbers on them: 10, 10, 10, 13, 13, 13, 20, 10, 10, the water-soluble synthetics that gave you a fast green flush and then vanished into the water table. Farmers who had been buying phosphate rock at $3.50 a ton in 1920 were now buying triple superphosphate, a chemically processed derivative, at prices that, adjusted for inflation, had roughly tripled. And the homeowner, who in 1935 might have bought a 50-pound sack of bone meal or wood ash from a feed store for under $1, was now being trained by advertising in Life magazine and Better Homes and Gardens to buy Scott's Turf Builder at prices per application that would have been considered outrageous by anyone alive before the war. I am not telling you this to make you angry, although I understand if you are. I am telling you this because the story matters. When you know how something was taken from you, you understand better why the thing you are about to do this weekend, mix that soft rock phosphate with that hardwood ash and broadcast it across your lawn, is not just a lawn care technique. It is a small, quiet act of restoration. You are stepping out of a system that was built for someone else's profit and stepping back into a way of doing things that fed this country for 200 years before the marketing men got hold of it. Let me get into the chemistry a little more, because I want you to understand exactly why this works. And I want to warn you in advance, some of what I am about to say will contradict what your local garden center employee will tell you if you ask them. That is fine. Consider the source. The garden center employee is trained by a company that sells bagged fertilizer. Their entire job is to move product off shelves. Soft rock phosphate, sometimes called colloidal phosphate, is different from the hard rock phosphate that gets processed into commercial fertilizer. The colloidal form has extremely small particle sizes, most of them under 2 microns, and those tiny particles carry a slight electrical charge that binds them to clay and organic matter in your soil. That binding is what gives you the 30-year release curve. The phosphate does not wash out with the first rain, it does not leach into the water table. It sits in the top 4 to 6 inches of your soil, held by the clay colloids, and it releases into the root zone slowly, in response to the mild acids that plant roots and soil microbes produce as part of their normal life. Your grass roots, when they need phosphorus, exude something called citric acid and a few other organic acids at the root tip. Those acids dissolve just enough phosphate off the colloidal particles to feed the plant. When the plant does not need it, the phosphate stays locked to the clay. This is a completely different mechanism from the phosphorus in a bag of 10-10-10, which is already in a water-soluble form and is either absorbed within days or washed away with the next rainfall. The synthetic form is a flood, the soft rock form is a slow drip that never stops. Then you add the hardwood ash, and here is where the magic really happens. Because hardwood ash from oak, hickory, maple, ash, beech, or fruit wood contains something on the order of 6 to 9% potassium, 4 to 7% calcium, 1 to 2% magnesium, and trace amounts of nearly every micronutrient your lawn needs: boron, manganese, copper, zinc, iron, molybdenum. It is essentially a mineral concentrate produced by the tree, which spent 40 or 80 years pulling minerals up out of deep subsoil that your grass roots will never reach on their own. When the tree burned, those minerals were concentrated into the ash. When you spread that ash on your lawn, you are handing your grass a mineral cocktail that a bag of 10-10-10 cannot even approach. But there is another effect, and this is the one nobody talks about. Hardwood ash is alkaline. Its pH is typically between 10 and 12 when fresh. Most American lawns, especially east of the Mississippi, are slightly to moderately acidic, sitting around a pH of 5.5 to 6.2. Grass grows best at around 6.5 to 7. When you spread hardwood ash, you are gently raising the pH of your soil into the range where grass thrives and where the phosphate you just applied becomes maximally available. Phosphate, you see, gets chemically locked up at low pH. It bonds to aluminum and iron ions in acidic soil and becomes unavailable to plants. Raise the pH just a little, and suddenly all that phosphate, both the new stuff you just applied and any residual phosphate that has been sitting locked in your soil for years, becomes available to the grass roots. This is why the wood ash matters. It is not just a source of potassium, it is a pH corrector that unlocks phosphorus. The two amendments work together in a way that neither one alone can achieve. This is what the old-timers knew intuitively, even if they could not have explained the chemistry. They just knew that if you spread the phosphate rock and the wood ash together, the pasture came back stronger than either one alone. There is one more piece I want to mention, because it comes up every time somebody tries this method for the first time. When you spread wood ash on your lawn, especially if you are heavy-handed with it, you may see a slight whitish cast on the grass blades for a day or two. Do not panic. Water it in lightly and it disappears. It is not burning the grass. It is a surface residue, and once it makes contact with the soil moisture, it dissolves and becomes part of the soil solution. Within a week, you will not know it was ever there. Now about sourcing. I said soft rock phosphate costs about $2, and that is true if you know where to look, but I want to be honest with you, you may not find it at the big box hardware stores. You will find it at agricultural co-ops, at old line feed and seed stores in rural areas, and at specialty organic gardening suppliers. In some parts of the country, particularly in the southeast, you can still buy it directly from the mines, in bulk, at prices that will make you shake your head. I know men in Tennessee who buy it for $55 a ton. That is right, a ton, 2,000 pounds, for $55. If you split a truckload with 3 or 4 neighbors, your per pound cost drops to something like 3 cents. That is the kind of number that used to be normal in America and has been made to feel abnormal by the way we do commerce now. If you cannot find bulk, the 50-pound sacks that co-ops sell run somewhere between $18 and $28 depending on where you live. One 50-pound sack at the application rate I gave you, will treat between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet of lawn. That is a typical suburban yard, front and back, treated once, with an amendment that will keep working for the next 20 to 30 years. For the wood ash, you probably already have a source. If you burn wood in a stove or a fireplace or an outdoor fire pit, save the ash in a metal bucket. Let it sit outside for a few weeks so any live coals are absolutely dead. Keep it dry, do not let it get rained on and leach out, because the potassium is water soluble and will wash right through. If you do not burn wood yourself, ask around. Somebody on your block does. Somebody at your church does. Somebody at your workplace has a wood stove and is dumping the ashes in the trash every week. Offer to take it off their hands. In most cases, they will thank you. Do not use ash from painted or treated wood, from cardboard, from magazines, from anything with printing ink on it, from pressure-treated lumber, or from artificial fireplace logs. You want clean, honest hardwood ash from real wood that was cut from a real tree. If you know the source, you know the material. Now, let me address a few questions I know are going to come up. The first one is always about timing. When should you apply this mix? The honest answer is that it does not matter as much as people think. This is not a synthetic fertilizer that needs to hit a growth cycle. This is a mineral amendment. You can apply it in early spring, in late fall, or any time during the growing season when the ground is not frozen. If you are asking me to pick the best time, I would say late fall, right after the last mow of the season, because it gives the winter rains and the freeze-thaw cycles a chance to work the material down into the top few inches of soil where it needs to be. The second best time is early spring, before the grass really wakes up. But do not agonize over it. Late June works, mid-August works. It is a long-release amendment. Timing is not critical. The second question is about how often. I have been saying 20 to 30 years, and I stand by that for the phosphate. But if you want to be conservative, and if you want to see steady maintenance level results, plan on a full application every 7 to 10 years, and a light touch-up of wood ash alone every 2 to 3 years to keep the potassium and pH where you want them. That is roughly 1 weekend of work per decade. Compare that to 4 weekends a year, every year, forever, which is what the bagged fertilizer model demands. The third question is about kids and pets. Soft rock phosphate is essentially inert rock powder. It is not toxic. It is not going to poison your dog if he walks through it or lies down in it. Wood ash is alkaline and could irritate skin or eyes if a child rolled around in a pile of pure ash, but once it is broadcast across the lawn at 10 to 12 pounds per 1,000 square feet and watered in, there is no meaningful exposure risk. This is fundamentally different from the synthetic fertilizers, which almost all carry warnings about keeping children and pets off the lawn for 24 to 48 hours after application. Think about that for a second. The stuff you have been putting on your lawn for the last 20 years came with a warning to keep your children off of it. The stuff I am telling you about tonight has been safely applied by hand, without gloves, without masks, by farmers for 130 years. The fourth question, and this one comes up in almost every comment section, is whether this method works on every kind of grass. The answer is yes, with a small footnote. Cool season grasses, Kentucky bluegrass, fescue, ryegrass, bentgrass love this treatment. They respond beautifully. Warm season grasses, Bermuda, zoysia, St. Augustine, centipede also respond well, but St. Augustine and centipede tend to prefer slightly more acidic soil, so you want to go a little lighter on the wood ash for those varieties. Cut the ash quantity roughly in half if you have St. Augustine or centipede lawns. The phosphate application stays the same. The fifth question is whether this replaces nitrogen. And here is where I have to be straight with you, because I do not want you spreading this mix and then being disappointed. Soft rock phosphate and wood ash together give you phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and every micronutrient your grass needs. What they do not give you is nitrogen. Nitrogen is what makes grass green and drives the leaf growth. In a healthy lawn, with active soil biology and a proper mineral base, nitrogen is largely supplied by the natural cycling of organic matter. by the clover and other legumes that are probably in your lawn, whether you want them there or not, and by the atmospheric nitrogen that gets fixed by soil bacteria. If you have been dumping synthetic nitrogen on your lawn for years, your soil biology is probably suppressed, and it will take a season or two of doing nothing to let it recover. Once it recovers, your lawn will start producing much of its own nitrogen through natural cycling. If you want to speed that up, leave your grass clippings on the lawn when you mow. Every bag of clippings you throw away is a bag of nitrogen you are throwing away. Grass clippings are somewhere around 4% nitrogen by dry weight, and returning them to the lawn provides between 1 and 2 pounds of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per year, which is right in the range that most lawns need. Mulch mow, do not bag. That alone, combined with the mineral amendment I have been describing, is enough to keep most lawns thick and green through a normal growing season. If you live somewhere with sandy soil, or if your lawn has been genuinely starved for a long time, you may want to supplement in the first year with a light application of an organic nitrogen source, something like alfalfa meal, feather meal, or a well-composted manure. But after that first year, as your soil biology recovers, you will find that the lawn needs less and less outside input. That is the trajectory. That is what a real lawn looks like when it is fed properly at the mineral level and then left to run its own cycles. I want to give you one more piece of history before I let you go, because it is the piece that put all of this together for me the first time I heard it. In 1943, right in the middle of the Second World War, the Tennessee Valley Authority commissioned a study on the long-term effects of soft rock phosphate on pasture productivity. The study was run out of the Muscle Shoals Research Station in Alabama, and it followed 48 test pastures across 7 southern states for a period of 22 years. When the results were published in 1965, they showed that pastures treated with a single heavy application of soft rock phosphate in 1943 were still, in 1965, producing between 30 and 40% more forage per acre than untreated control pastures. One application, 22 years, 30 to 40% more grass. That study exists. You can find it in the older TVA archives. It has been quietly ignored for 60 years while American homeowners and American farmers have been trained to buy synthetic fertilizer every 6 weeks. And the reason it has been ignored is not because the science was wrong. The science was perfectly good. It has been ignored because the economics of a 30-year fertilizer do not work for a fertilizer company. There is no repeat purchase. There is no subscription. There is no reason for a customer to come back to the store year after year, spending money. The story of your lawn is really the story of a much bigger shift in how Americans have been taught to relate to the land under their feet. We used to think in decades and generations. We used to make deposits into the soil and expect them to pay out for a long time. Now we think in 6-week increments, in bag sizes, in seasonal application schedules that somebody in a marketing department designed to maximize revenue per household. And most people never even notice the switch because it happens slowly, over 3 generations, and by the time you and I came along, the old way was already forgotten. That is what I mean when I say something was taken from you. It was not just a cheaper way to feed your lawn. It was a way of thinking, a way of relating to your own property, a confidence that a man could handle his own land without a subscription plan, without a professional service, without a garden center employee telling him what to buy this month. You are getting that back this weekend. $2 of powder, a bucket of ash you are going to throw out, a stick to stir with, a few hours of your Saturday, and a lawn that will thank you for the next 20 years.